Next on the show today, The Play That Goes Wrong continues its run in the West End, and my guest this afternoon is one of the co-writers and director of the show, Jonathan Sayep. So first of all, when I chatted to Jonathan earlier, I asked, what is The Play That Goes Wrong?
Well, The Play That Goes Wrong is a show that does exactly what it says on the tin. So it's a play where a drama group, a society of drama students, are trying to put on a show. It's like an old murder mystery, a kind of Agatha Christie classic almost. And everything that could possibly go wrong goes wrong, and they're kind of doomed to live in this kind of eternal and constant failure. But it's also a show with probably more jokes per minute than any other show in existence, and it's got some really big slapstick moments and some really big kind of stunt work, and it's just a very, very funny, silly hour and a half to watch and enjoy.
Is this a figment of your imagination, or has this stuff actually happened? Is this based on a story?
I think, thankfully, I've never experienced quite as much bad luck as the team in Conley and The Play That Goes Wrong. But there's definitely things that we've kind of had experience with that we've exaggerated. Definitely had moments where doors, don't open when you need to when you need to get on stage and all that kind of stuff. But thankfully, not as bad as in The Play That Goes Wrong.
Yeah, you called it bad luck. I put that down to poor planning. That's what it is when that sort of stuff happens.
Yeah, they definitely haven't planned a lot, the characters in The Play That Goes Wrong.
But if you're going to take the rise out of those shows and those things that happen that are badly thought out, you've got to be without fault. But has it ever gone wrong?
It has. So I can think of a few different occasions, some kind of hairy moments where we've had dislocated shoulders and all that kind of stuff. So on the dramatic end of stuff, but then also just really silly things. So I've done the show probably over 1,000 times now, and I remember when the show opened on Broadway a few years back, I just totally forgot my lines, and I couldn't remember, because I'd done the show so many times, whether I'd said the line already or whether I hadn't. And I managed to get totally confused, and then I jumped 10 pages of dialogue forward, which made no sense. And then the other actor that was with me tried to improvise and find their way back to where we should have been, and I kept pushing us forward in the show. So we've definitely had all of that. And then we've also had, moments where big effects, they don't work. So in your head, as an actor, you have to just kind of jump 5 pages ahead and move on to the next joke.
Keeps you on your toes, though. I think the first time that I really kind of got a grasp of what the show was, it was televised the other Christmas, I think, a few Christmases ago. And the scene I really remember is when I think it's bunk beds collapse on top of each other. Is that right?
Yeah, that's in our version of Peter Pan Goes Wrong, and there's a scene where the Darling children all go to bed, and it's this kind of three-story bed, I should say. And the person on the top of the bunk gets in and lies down, and as they lie down, the bed slams down into the person that's in the middle, and then that person lies down, and it all slams down onto the poor soul who's at the bottom of the bed, which happened to be me, which was without doubt one of the most terrifying experiences, to do that nightly and just know this massive oak bed is going to come down and miss your head by a kind of couple of millimeters. Always kept me very awake.
I don't think that's a spoiler, because it was on the TV, and now we've talked about it, but it's really effective. It made me laugh out loud when I saw that. Yeah, so this is the original Play That Goes Wrong. How many kind of spin-offs have you written and put on?
Well, so we've had The Play That Goes Wrong and Peter Pan That Goes Wrong. We had a magic show as well called Magic Goes Wrong, and then the TV show, The Goes Wrong Show. So there's kind of four different spin-offs, I suppose.
And how far and wide have they travelled? I mean, you mentioned doing Play That Goes Wrong on Broadway. So did that sit well with a Broadway audience?
It did, yeah. I mean, it's probably worth just giving a little potted history of the show. So we first performed it in, the smallest way you could think of, really. We were at a tiny little pub theatre, kind of, about 50 seats. Our first night, I think we had about 25 people in. This is coming up to 10 years ago, actually, now 10 years this month, in fact.
Wow.
And we were just very, very fortunate that, a bit of word of mouth spreaded. And we ended up with a producer that said, well, why don't you take this show on a big UK tour? So we took it on a UK tour, ended up coming into the West End, and then just totally, it's very surreal, this, but J.J. Abrams, the director of Star Wars, was just walking around the central London, as you do, after a day of filming, and saw the frontage for our theatre, which is kind of, all the front of house stuff looks like it's falling off and coming down, and all the ads are upside down and the rest of it. And he thought, well, that looks fun. And he came to see the show, and this was back when we were performing in it. And he kind of said, we should all go out to America and do this show. And he ended up being one of our US producers. And the show's kind of running all over the world now. It's been in around 35 different countries, and it always seems to be enjoyed in a very, very similar way. So we're really very lucky. And the audiences have loved it, and it's been running for a long time now.
Yeah, I think you've made your own luck is how I'd categorise that. And it also reminds me a little bit about the story of Stomp, which began on the streets here in Brighton. And then that had... I think it's because you stumble across something that really lands with the audience, because Stomp has, and I just saw it maybe 6 months ago, earlier this year. And as in essence... it's a similar thing to what they started doing initially, but it still rings true and it's still fantastically entertaining. So you hit that lucky formula, which is just a product of creative minds coming together, and who knows where it will go. Is that kind of how it worked for you?
Yeah, so we kind of always work with the same team. So I write with Henry and Henry, but then we have a kind of core group within Mischief, and we all kind of develop the work together and, make it funnier. And yeah, I suppose like it has that thing that, when we started this, we were the only reason to do it was just for the love and the passion of it all. And I think you can still kind of feel that in the show now. We've got an amazing cast that are running in the West End at the moment, and there's a lot of people that pour a lot of themselves into keeping it as funny and fresh now as it was when the show first started.
I suppose, those moments where something collapses around a person and narrowly misses them is funny to the audience for the kind of shock of it and the near miss of it. But if you're doing that night after night, keeping that comedy energy going must be a real discipline.
Definitely. I mean, for the drama society, the characters within the play, it's every night is opening night. So yeah, a lot of the directors in the show, they talk about always making sure that sense of opening night nerves is there, because I think the more hope. It's that whole thing about the hope that kills you. I think that the characters have to always really believe the show's going to go perfectly. Our opening night is going to be fantastic. And then obviously every single night it goes dreadfully wrong. But yeah, a huge amount of work goes into keeping that pain fresh and with it making it really, really funny and kind of enjoyable for all our audiences.
So listen, Jonathan, we're counting down to the festive season. I know that because I was watching the TV last night. And
that's come around so quick, hasn't it, this year?
Every ad break had massive ads for all the supermarkets in it.
But then the supermarkets are at Christmas in, late September now.
That is true.
I like it. I'm a big fan of Christmas, though, so I'm all for it.
So I'm just thinking that a lot of families like to have, a big trip out, a real treat, maybe to go to the West End to see something. Why should they come and see your show if they're thinking about doing something this Christmas?
I think it is a guaranteed laughter machine for families. So I think if you're caught between two minds, I can guarantee this show has more jokes in it than any show you've ever seen in your life. It'll have moments where your jaw drops and you say, oh my God, I can't believe that person has just swung across the stage like that. There must be a trained stunt person. And also it's warm family viewing, and it's dead inclusive, and it's just a show for everyone.
Right, so you can bring the kids along and it's all good for them.
Absolutely, yeah. It's fun for all the family.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with a bit of slapstick, can you? I mean, I think that my other favourite moment in slapstick in recent years has been that bit in One Man, Two Governors, where they're slamming in and out of the restaurant through those doors.
Oh, with him going down the stairs and stuff.
That's goodness.
Fantastic. It's so good, that, isn't it? I actually knew the guy that was the first person to play the kind of old butler, old waiter, and yeah, it's a fantastic track, and it's brilliant.
But and slapstick is. It covers the whole generations, because there's no other language needing them what you're seeing and the potential for the disaster to go wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, and as well, I'm sure that I know that when this goes, I know that our producer will be listening and will be saying, "Don't talk about One Man, Two Governors." So we've got lots of slapstick that's just like that kind of stuff. We've got a really big moment at the end of the show that's kind of reminiscent of Buster Keaton. with I don't want to give too much away, but there's a really famous Buster Keaton physical sequence where lots of walls fall down and he narrowly misses stuff by a couple of inches, and we kind of have an homage to that moment in the show. Lots to keep you laughing then. That's The Play That Goes Wrong. That was Jonathan Sayer talking to us earlier. It's on at the Duchess Theatre in London. You can book on 0330 333 4810 and go to theplaythatgoeswrong.com for details on the website. 19 minutes past 4 now.